We're so glad that you're joining us for the 2025 Zero Waste Month interview series. My name is Elisa Jones, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's session. Our theme is Zero Waste Baby, and this is where we explore how raising a baby more sustainably is not only possible, but also deeply rewarding. And we're going to hear today directly from some amazing zero waste moms, so true experts on this subject, on how moving towards zero waste habits can have beneficial impacts on a baby's health, can save parents money and simplify their lives, and keep more waste out of our landfills and our waterways. So a little bit about Zero Waste Month. Zero Waste Month is an annual campaign put on by Race to Zero Waste. And during Zero Waste Month, we turned the race to zero waste into a sprint. And what that means is that every October, we ask you to try and make an extra effort to do something new in your journey towards zero waste. And as we close out October, our Zero Waste Month, I do want to encourage you to keep that momentum going throughout the year by continuing to build on your zero waste knowledge and reinforcing those daily habits. Anything that you do can help make a difference. Please know that. And we just need you to start sharing your experiences with other people. So start to convince your friends, your family, your colleagues to do the same thing. The absolute easiest way to participate at any time is to take a picture of yourself doing a zero waste action or providing a helpful zero waste tip and just sharing that with your friends, your family. You can use hashtag Zero Waste Month, or even throughout the year, you can do hashtag Zero Waste Action or actions. So all of those get the word out there about zero waste and that you're taking part. I would also still encourage you to visit our website at zerowastemonth.org. We have amazing resources there, and I would especially encourage you to sign up to get a copy of our activation toolkit. That's a PDF that we'll send you that's full of step-by-step guides to create your own zero waste events and get-togethers any time of the year. So it's a really great resource, and I think you'll enjoy that, and a lot of fun activities. Race to Zero Waste. So Race to Zero Waste is a nonprofit organization that brings zero waste concepts to life by taking action. Race to Zero Waste is devoted to educating the public on zero waste principles and achieving an equitable circular economy. Race to Zero Waste envisions a world where a zero waste lifestyle is automatic, it's accessible to everyone, and it's convenient to us all. So with that, I do want to introduce you to our team today. We have Danny, who's going to be on the chat, and we'll be posting some links and running a Q&A after we talk with our guests. So please, if you have questions, we will have in the second half of the interview an opportunity to hear from you. So if you're a zero waste mom or somebody who's interested, we would love to hear from you, your questions or even your comments. You don't have to be a seasoned zero waste mom. You can be a curious parent, a family member, a grandparent, someone who's just getting started. Just know that everyone is welcome here, and zero waste is a choice. It's a more conscious way of living, and it can be very interesting and fun, and you will learn a lot. So please enjoy this interview, and we hope it gives you lots of food for thought. With that, I'm very pleased to introduce our guest today. We have Myrna Gold, and she supports the communications for multiple zero waste organizations. And we also have Ashley DiGregorio, and she is the Senior Director of Energy and Communities, the Energy and Communities Program at Green Building Alliance in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and a zero waste mom as well. And we have Alejandra Warren, who is the founder and executive director of Plastic Free Future, and she's joining us from Rome, Italy. So welcome to all of you. We're so excited to have you here today, some zero waste mom experts, to talk about zero waste babies. Firstly, I'd kind of like to hear from each of you just a little bit about yourself and how you got to being a zero waste mom. Like, how did that work for you? How did you come to that? So sort of share your story with us. And maybe we could start with Alejandra.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so glad to be here. I've known Teresa and I've been part of the Race to Zero Waste enthusiast for many years. So I'm really privileged to be here with you tonight. A little bit about the zero waste mom journey for me. I guess it goes back to the ways I was raised in South America. I was born and raised in South America, completely different culture where we need a lot less. So I think part of that is cultural, and that's why we're here talking to everyone because we need a diversity of perspectives. Zero waste is not just one definition, one thing. It looks very different. To feel intimidated because zero waste is imperfect. Nobody can tell you I am perfectly zero waste. That is absolutely impossible in the society we live right now. So when we say zero waste moms and zero waste babies, it's more like a dream and a hope and a wish for the world more than a certainty. So yes, basically my kind of zero waste is very cultural, and I hope we get to talk a little bit more about those details during the conversation. And I'll let Ashley go next.
Thank you, Alejandra, and thanks to everybody. I'm actually so touched to be here, and I feel very fortunate to have been thought of. And sorry that what prompted it is that Teresa has laryngitis. So I am but a shadow of some of the zero waste mom experts that I actually look to for solutions, but very privileged to chat with everyone. My zero waste journey and passion started in when I was studying for my graduate degree in policy and international development in Pittsburgh, where I live now. And I actually overlapped with Teresa when she was still in the Pittsburgh area. And a fun fact, I worked for the Pennsylvania Resources Council, and now I work on built environment solutions to all kinds of carbon emission problems and other problems toward thriving, toward environmental and human thriving. And I think that my fun story that I would like to tell is that my baby right now, who's actually not a baby anymore, she's 14 months old, is wearing the cloth diapers as we speak that were handed down to me secondhand by Teresa. So actually, I think they were secondhand when she got them. So, one thing that I love about being zero waste is that it is very much about supporting one another and creating a connection with others through materials that it's about more. The positive outcome ends up being about more than just the reduction of materials, which is hugely important, but also about the meaningful connections and support that we generate within our communities as a result of those cultural changes. Just as Alejandra spoke to the importance of culture, it's inseparable from it. So happy to talk about it.
Thank you, Ashley.
Absolutely, Ashley. I wanted to add that I think to me, as a cultural aspect of zero waste, community has been number one. And I think what Ashley is saying, I want everyone to listen and to think about how that community aspect looks for you, because that's going to be crucial in zero waste. And part of I didn't even know I was a zero waste mom because there wasn't a name back then. I read somewhere that zero waste was coined in 2010, and I'm like, humans have been doing this for thousands of years. How can anyone coin the word zero waste? That is as human as humanity, 6,000 years old is zero waste. So many of those practices are things that we are not aware that are zero waste. So actually, like you were saying, some of us come through it through resource conservation or to avoid waste, but maybe your zero waste doesn't look like that. So keep that in mind. Maybe you already do some things that are zero waste, you just don't know it yet, but you're going to learn more about that during this.
Okay. Thank you, Alejandra. And now, Myrna Gold, could you talk to us a little bit about your experience being a zero waste mom?
Sure. Hi, I'm Myrna. I'm in Sacramento County, California, and I am first generation Filipino. And so I was the first child in my family to be born in America. When my parents immigrated here back in the early 1950s, and when I was born in the 1960s, there was no term for zero waste. It was just normal life. And so it was very, I don't even know if I had a consciousness, but it was just how I was raised that, we repaired our own clothes. We had cloth diapers. We refilled milk jugs. My father's tool shed was like the community library growing up. There was no need to run out and buy things. You walked down the street and borrowed something from a neighbor, and then you exchanged food. And so my approach to my own children, I have three, and it's always been sort of just, I don't know if there's a better word than indigenous or native to how I was raised, that you use jars for drinks and you sterilize baby bottles if your baby is drinking goat's milk or formula. This idea of plastic convenience, because babies are not convenient at all. So what we are rushed for is time, as mothers, as leaders, as parents, as partners. So we are always rushing, but I was not raised that way, and so I didn't take that same kind of approach with my own children, who had the benefit of cloth diapers and glass bottles and the rubber tops to bottles, because that's what I knew, and that's what was available to me. So we use what's available to us, and it wasn't odd. It was very odd for me to go to school and have my sandwiches wrapped in banana leaf. And that was an odd, and I didn't have like a container that was something that I could throw away at the end of the day. I had to bring home everything. So anyway, that's just a little bit about me. I have a 29-year-old son, I have a 15-year-old son, and I have a 13-year-old daughter. And it is really wonderful when they come into those teen years and they're doing the things that are offsetting the things that are adding to our waste. I think motherhood with zero waste in mind is a game of offsets. So it's really nice to see your children reflecting those values and those practices. So thanks for letting me meander.
No worries, Myrna. And that's a great point. I guess, and I'll take this to Alejandra first, but in that big picture, we all lead different lives in different areas of the world, but looking at our world today, big picture, how much of a difference does raising a zero waste baby or children make in the world? Why is that important?
Yeah, again, I think all of us have said that zero waste is just a term that we're using right now, but it comes down to what our past generations did or grandmothers did. So maybe you don't call it zero waste, but you call it different names. So it doesn't matter how you call it. To me, raising a child zero waste is a matter of ethics. Very often when I'm meditating or reflecting, I think about the way racism has happened in our society. We got to a point where we know, at least most of us know, that racism is incorrect, it's absolutely unacceptable. And I think about how are future generations going to feel about the ecological impact that we have in the world. And I think I am the ancestor of my great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren. So how I want my great-great-great-grandchildren to feel about the life I lived, the life I gave to my children, and the life that they're receiving. So to me, zero waste is not about being a perfect zero waste mom. To me, it's a way to show your children that you care about something so much bigger than yourself, that you understand that you're interconnected with absolutely everything in this planet. We are water. Look, water just right here. If it's contaminated, I can drink it. Air, I'm breathing it. I'm air. I'm soil of the fruits that I eat, of the vegetables I eat. So if you don't understand that absolutely everything in this planet is interconnected, you miss the spirit of zero waste, because zero waste is about taking care of each other, and that includes every single species. That includes the air we breathe. So when you think about that, it's more about kindness and about love than about being a strict mom, buying sustainable, expensive things. It's not about that. It's about just touching your heart and saying, like, what world do I want to leave to my children?
And I find that interesting because, you know, we hear a lot of our young people today talking about their anxiety with the world and the problems, but just that maybe it's nice as a mother to be able to, as Myrna said too, help your child understand that you care through delivering those values to them. So I think that's really an important point. Ashley, what are your thoughts, sort of big picture, on the importance of, again, zero waste, zero waste baby, or being a zero waste mom?
Yeah, no, it's funny. I was thinking about my relationship with my grandparents. I think what many of us share is that we're also inspired by ancestral wisdom, so to speak. And my grandmother, I grew up Roman Catholic in a very Italian household. And my grandmother always used to tell me that when you waste food, that when you die and go to purgatory, you'll have to, the Virgin Mary will make you pick up the food that you wasted in your life and put it in a basket without a bottom. And we would laugh about it, she and I. But the point that she was trying to instill in me was that, you know, I needed to be intentional. I needed to be thoughtful about how my actions impacted everything around me, as Alejandra said. And now here I am, a passionate, you know, zero waste advocate and advocate for just a regenerative world where we have that philosophy. And so I think that a big part of it as well is for me, I am someone who I really value memories, and I think a lot of of people who share this passion really value experiences. And I think that when I think back to the things that I remember and love about the people who have influenced me so much, I don't think about things that they gave me. I think about times that I got to spend with them and, you know, the meals that they cooked for me. And so, you know, I think about stories that I got to hear from them. And when I look back at those memories, certainly I got beautiful gifts that were physical products, like a favorite doll or something. But I think, you know, I can count on one hand those physical material items that had real meaning, that like transcended just the transaction of getting me a gift every year for a holiday or a birthday. And and I I the number of memories I have of time spent together is infinite. So I try to think about that. And I think about, I can already see my kids are 3, almost 4, and just turned 1. So a month and a half ago. So, you know, they're very young, and I have a long period ahead to realize what their values will have become. But I can already see that they are learning to build really deep connections with me and with our family members and our neighbors and their teachers at daycare. And I think when I just take a moment to pause and say, that instinct that they have, or that reflex that we have to say, I want that thing. Like, I have to give my kids lots of things. When I take a moment to pause and question it, instead of just automatically feeling that that is the signifier of my care, it ends up creating these more deeper connections that mean a lot more to me.
Mm-hmm. And Myrna, maybe you could sort of, you already spoke about how, you know, your children are older, but how those values you've started to see that come through. So maybe you could share with us a little bit about what that means to you or what you've seen.
Well, what I love very much so, one of the byproducts I think of when we were isolated during COVID shutdowns was that was a very nice concentrated time. We talked a lot because my professional background is in writing, and then that translated into public health. And so I was trying to talk to them about this ecological justice and how we are putting a burden on our waste workers by having all of these organics and these plastics and these other contaminants into our landfills. And they were, at the time, they were in second and fourth grade. My other son was in Africa. My oldest son was in Africa at the time. And so my two little ones being at home, it was really wonderful for them to understand, that we are what we do at our local level to keep each other healthy during this time of great unhealth and great uncertainty. We don't want to create more economic burden for other people. We want to be a resource, and we want to be friends to our community. And so, second and third grade, they're just sponges, so they're helping me sort waste. And it was really great for them to understand, look at that, our black bin is empty. There's nothing in our black bin. All of our organics are sorted into our green organics bin. Everything that's acceptable plastic is in the blue bin. And what that means is that we are balancing something else somewhere else. For waste that is being generated and being harmful somewhere else, we are offsetting that in our own way. And that is what I think the essence of zero waste value sharing is. Also, like when they were little, and I would teach my kids the importance of care of other people. So we would do these little, bring me, like one of my neighbors gave Paloma, my youngest daughter, these little babies, these little toy babies, right? And Paloma was thrilled. She didn't really have dolls per se, right? So she had these two little babies that our neighbors donated. And so we used that as an opportunity to show them this is how you diaper a baby, and not just for Paloma, but for Elijah too. So we wanted to make sure that we shared with them, this is how you share the chores, you balance the load of what it takes to raise family. And I think that is very something that is from zero. That is, I know that Alejandra earlier said, like, where did the zero waste term come from, but from my native roots and my heritage roots from my father was the main baby caregiver growing. When in our culture, in Filipino culture, the fathers are the ones who care for the babies while the mothers heal from birth. And so that's a beautiful experience that I have now passed to my sons. And it makes me feel so good to see that they have this value. They have this, not all of the burden of this very commercial and capitalistic and very FOMO, fear of missing out marketing life drives us, right? And it takes the insanity away from the pressure of being that parent that has to do everything. That's part of the imbalance of what this consumptive lifestyle and culture, that it's a burden that is laid upon us, is that there's inequity and there's inequality in a world where we are striving to have better offsets. And that's why I believe that zero waste parenting is a very powerful statement and passing those values on. And you see your children developing those same thoughts and those same ideas. Not that they're not allowed to develop their own ideas, but it gives them a foundation of and a worldview of how are you going to look at this? How are we going to look at Christmas as this insane time where mom is burnt out and dad is burnt out and we're doing things last minute and we're running to the store? Or are we going to just sit back and go to the mountains unencumbered? We asked our kids, what do you want to do for Christmas this year? Oh, we just want to be together. And so we're going to gather. We're not going to do big presents. We're going to gather and we're going to play games and we're going to cook together and we're going to be unencumbered. One of the things I wanted to say about being first generation American and having those roots come from another place is that growing up, we were unencumbered. We didn't have much at all. I think I had maybe 3 outfits, and my mother and my sister and I, we all made clothing from rice sacks They were our pillowcases. They were our short pants in the summertime. They were little cotton dresses. And because you didn't have things to take care of at the home, we were free to travel along California. My father liked nothing more than to say on a Saturday morning, let's go. And we would get in the car and we would just go, and we would find places that we had never seen in California, go just totally swirling away to these little adventures. And there was none of the burden, the weight of having to come home and, oh, I've got to do this and I have to do that and I have to do this, which were all part of this mad lifestyle we have because of marketing, of what we are told that we need versus the ability to slow down and reflect upon what our children truly need. You know, like when we stop and we, you know, like I remember, giving birth at Kaiser, and you get so much marketing material, like this pacifier, Fisher Price toys, you have a coupon for this, they give you a $25 coupon for that, and you go home with more swag than you do with knowledge as a new mother, as a new parent. I would have rather had more time with my doula and more time with my breast care, my breastfeeding consultant than I would have had, 5 pounds of coupons and swag, right? Yeah. And time with my nurses, because the nurses imparted so much good information. So that's what I think about it, to become an unencumbered parent, to be an unencumbered family. And again, I go back to that idea of offsetting the desire for more with the desire to live more, and to give that, and to see our children, like my son, I'm going to Africa, I'm going to France, I'm going to Spain, to hear him say that to me, and I go, yes, go see more. That's not perfection for sure, but it is the curiosity that I want my children to have instilled in their lives, versus just, I need to have more, versus I want to live more.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Thank you. That was really great, Myrna. I want to have one more kind of bigger picture question, and then I'd like to move into more specifics if we have some zero waste moms or new zero waste babies, so we can get into the practical, your experiences on that. So maybe if just for this question, this last sort of big picture, just kind of your initial thoughts on it. To Alejandra, are there misconceptions or misinformation around raising a zero waste baby? Is that something that you think it's just not known about, or it's only known about in certain cultures? Is it seen as elitist? Where are the problems in disseminating this information to a larger, swath of the population?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we were all mentioning at some point, that zero waste has to be more diverse. Zero waste has to be more wide, and zero waste has to show people that it's actually possible. I was in a trip a few weeks ago, and I walked through a street where every single window had clothes hanging, and I saw many diapers, and I saw many baby clothes. And the first thing, I didn't even know I was going to do this interview, but I was thinking about babies that day, because I thought, I wish I had a note right now and I could leave a note under the doors and tell the moms, you're a zero waste mom, because you are doing what millions of mothers around the world, for very different reasons, are not able to do, or don't know how to do, or think it's disgusting, many different reasons, but you are doing it, and it has so much value. And I think that's the part that we're missing in zero waste: going to people, meeting people where they are, meeting people in their real life experience, and telling them that little thing that you're doing has so much more value than you imagine. And that is a zero waste principle that you already have in your life. What's your next step? How can I help you get one step ahead? And I would say for all of us, it's going to constantly be, like Myrna mentioned, fighting capitalism and fighting the urgency to buy more. The reason why I feel like I was a zero waste mom before zero waste mom definition existed is because I didn't need much. I come from a culture where I have never interacted with a diaper genie. I have no idea how that works. And I see all of these registrations like, I need this and this and this and this for the baby. Just slow down for a second and think like, is it really something that you need, or is something that society is telling you that you do need? Because most of the time we don't need any of this. Most of the time you go to your friend and your friend tells you, oh, I have 2 of those. Do you want one? So again, to the part of community, to part of conversation, and to part of slowing down and being, what is exactly what is gonna make my baby happy? I feel like for Latinx communities, I grew up in Colombia, but for Latinx communities living in the United States, I think it's this guilt of, I want to give my children what I didn't have. And that I encounter that in my job so much, like talking to parents and telling them, I have to go to Walmart and buying the Barbie and buying the this and buying the that because I didn't have any of that. And I'm like, yeah, but what are the things that you did have that your children are not having? All that time, all those memories, the families, the meal, that is what we really care about. And that's what really makes us humans, not the stuff. So when you have those kind, respectful, and loving conversations with other people without the judgment, you can connect at a human level. And there's where the conversation really starts. When you're like, okay, you're here, I'm here. How can we have a conversation so I can support the next step? So I feel like that's what the zero waste movement really needs. Not that quick fix, but say how it is going to work in your kitchen, in your bedroom, in your bathroom for your baby. Are diapers going to work for you or not? Because let's be honest, they're really busy moms, and most of the time, I wish all cultures were like Myrna's, that parents, that dads step up. But most of the time, when I go do outreach to talk about composting or sorting or doing any kind of sustainability, at the door, the husband tells me, let me call my wife because she's the one that takes care of compost. And I'm like, no, sir, I'm so sorry, but composting is not for women. You're going to listen to me. You're going to understand what I'm telling you, and you're going to start doing it because it's a responsibility that cannot be only a burden for moms. It needs to be a responsibility for the entire family and the entire community.
Mm-hmm. To Ashley or to Myrna, do you have anything to add to that? Because this was a really nice segue into the practical, but I just wanted to make sure if you had anything on that subject that you wanted to add. Please feel free.
No, I second the whole thing.
All right, well then I'm going to move you to a more practical question. If you could go back to, say, the first year of your baby's life and the environmental impact that that's going to make, what would you recommend if somebody hasn't done this, or if they have, but they're still trying things out? What has the most effect? Like, what would you recommend? Why? What can they do to get started or make the most impact?
I would be happy to start with this one. And I actually am going to be a little bit, I might say something that is not expected, but I would actually start by building your local community around the things that you need and the services that you need for childcare. And the reason I say that is because, I did try to keep my baby registry very limited, and I still got so much, not knowing when you're a new parent, regardless of where you come from, you really don't know. It's so new, and you lack confidence. And my husband and I always say, like, of the actual materials that we got for when our first child was born, we're like, I can think of like 3 things that we were like, I really couldn't have, like, I had no idea how important those items were going to be. But when I think about like my day-to-day experience with my kids in these almost 4 years, what has actually been really incredible is I can text, this is where being zero waste is about, in like getting off of Instagram, which I'm addicted to it too, so I'm not saying, but getting off of TikTok and Instagram videos that are hashtagged about zero waste, unless they're part of Race to Zero Waste social media outreach, Um, but getting away from the influencers that are, thousands of miles away from us, and we can certainly be inspired by them, but turning around first and saying, instead of saying like, what is this influencer advertising to me, actually think about, what do I really need? And when the time comes that I need it, and just having relationships with my neighbors. I live in a city neighborhood in Pittsburgh, but it kind of feels like a suburb. I can go outside. Our neighborhood is the kind that, you go outside and you see your neighbors walking their dogs. You can, we have a community recreational center that does have some youth programming. And there's these, we have an elementary school, and there are things that I like to think I've been one of many, many people in the neighborhood that has helped to continue to keep momentum going around making sure that people are getting together in person. We talked about COVID changing a lot of things, but it's not the only thing that has isolated us. And I think now we have a lot of ways to safely, get together in person. And I can turn to so many people in a moment's notice and say, do you have these clothing items, or do you have a pack and play, because we're going on a trip and our pack and play broke. I don't want to buy another pack and play. Do you have, I took my oldest daughter 2 years ago on a trip to Italy, and I was saying, and actually this year too, both of my kids, we took to California, and I was thinking, like, what can I bring that will help make this flight like survivable? And I was sitting looking on, my phone at like $150 Amazon Fire Kids tablet, and just having like a pain in the pit of my stomach. And I sent one message out, and within 7 minutes, one of my neighbor friends said, "Oh, I have one, you can borrow it. And in fact, you probably don't need to give it back to me." And that care and that practical support, and also the ability, those relationships go beyond being able to share items. Having the ability for any of us to say, yes, join a Buy Nothing group. And if you have a Facebook neighborhood group, the ability for someone to say, and it's happened to me many times, and I've done it many times, to say, something's going on. I need someone to come and sit with one of my kids for half an hour until I can, get a more permanent solution, because there was an emergency and, one of your other kids, God forbid, has to go to a hospital, or your spouse or something. That has happened countless times. And just being able to lean on other people, that's actually what I wish I had started with first.
Okay, makes sense. Myrna, for parents, if they could make a change in the first year to reduce impact, the environmental impact, are there things that you would recommend? Why would you recommend that? What worked for you?
What worked for me was not buying many things. It was, I didn't need more for my children. I really didn't. Like, my parents thought it was so hilarious at my baby shower of all these things that people were giving me, these plastic giant car keys and these stuffy animals and all of these things that they thought that baby would need, and my parents just thought that was just the funniest thing ever. Like, I got this huge crib, and my parents were like, we co-slept with all of our babies. What is this crib about? And all this gear that would just made movement impossible. It literally made movement impossible. To go anywhere fun just required so much stuff. So I think what I would say to parents who are either adopting children, or they are birthing their children, or they are caregiving for others, is that you don't need much. Children don't expect any of this to be until you normalize it for them. You know, I would rather, if someone was going to go, I remember there's a very funny story. So we were, my husband's family is from Santa Monica, which is West LA by the beach. So there are a lot of wealthy families, a lot of producers and actors and performers, people who are in the industry that lived in that neighborhood at the time. And he had a very famous neighbor. It was Pierce Brosnan and his wife, and she was pregnant at the same time as I was pregnant, and both of our sons are named Nicholas. And what was really funny was that there was a picture of Pierce Brosnan and his lovely wife on People magazine in this and the baby was in this Ralph Lauren, like, I think it was like a $300, like it looked like a little teddy bear outfit. It was fuzzy. It was that polyester stuff, you know, the stuff that is now in all of our things, you know, the microfibers. And it was real. We got back, you know, so it was funny. My mother-in-law found that same little outfit at one of the community thrift stores in Santa Monica and bought it for Nicholas. So here's this child who is, you know, on the cover of People magazine, and here's mine in a thrifted version, you know, and he wore it for 6 weeks. I mean, literally 6 weeks. And who wears that sort of thick material? Santa Monica. I mean, literally, like, you wear it for the gram, right? You're wearing it for the exposure. It's cute, and then you'll never use it again. There is more love in a cotton onesie that I would have gotten from another family member or one of my neighbors than that little polyester fiber teddy bear outfit, which I have no idea where that thing is now. You know, like, I got mine thrifted. So my mother-in-law found it. My diaper bag was thrifted. There's just not much to, other than to be present for the needs of your child, identifying hunger, identifying needs, like, when does my diaper need to be changed? And I'll give you guys a little hat tip. One of the things in the Philippines regarding cloth diapers is there's an assertion by parents that cloth diapered babies will potty train faster. So I mean, every packet of diapers that you see in the store or anywhere ends up in a landfill. You know, there are some things you got to be gross about when you're using cloth diapers, right? But it gives you a better perspective of how things are made, how things are used, where they exist in a supply chain, and how long they're going to exist in a supply chain. The fact that Ashley was able to reuse things that Chloe used, and Chloe was getting them already used, shows you the lifespan of these cotton fibers and the usefulness across children who won't remember anyway. But what they do remember is that their parents and the people who love them took the time and the energy and the thoughtfulness to say, right here is something that I want to do appropriately and generously to my child, for my child. You know, if you get down all the way to the essence of it, what they need, our children, is generosity. They need the generosity of your time. They need the generosity of your thought. They need the generosity of being held and having words read to them. They need the generosity of a community that sees how their parents are raising these kids. That is generosity. That is the essence of kindness. That is the essence of community. When we make our lives attractive through this kind of love and this thoughtfulness, that really doesn't even belong to us. It's something that we learned previously. Like, I didn't invent any of this. Like, my parents gave it to me, right? Alejandra said earlier, I am the ancestor of generations that will come in my wake. So how you create that tsunami, you know, is literally by not encumbering our children with the things they just don't need. We are so overwhelmed with being told what we need. As women, we all know, I don't think there's a single male partner here today, but we are overwhelmed always by reclaiming our space and saying, this is what I need, and this is what I desire. And that is the best kind of partnership you could have to your children. That is the best sort of legacy. When you, like, my children don't have smartphones, and that's completely intentional, even though they're 13 and they're 15 now, and boy, they want an iPhone, and we have a ratty little iPhone in our house, and we're not caving. We have to hold the line, because that is just one more way for to be told what you need versus what you really need, being have the independence of thought to understand yourself enough. So that is what zero waste, necessity is. It is love and thoughtfulness. And there's the practical, you need diapers, you need bottles if you're not able to breastfeed, you need a community of people who know way more than you. And from a very humble perspective, very humble. We really have to humble ourselves to so many people versus systems. We're already on our knees to systems. So when we become humble to the needs of our community and really begin to love them, we have a better impact for our kids, for these children. And it's not just babies. I think all the time about there's that story in foster families where you come home from school and there's a big black garbage bag of your things on the porch and you're moving on, where and we always say that waste has to go somewhere. And when we start having systems that treat people like they're not waste, then we make inroads. Again, it's a system of offsets when it comes to raising people. We're not raising babies. We're getting through the first year until they walk, but we're raising people. Mm-hmm. So that's, so like the necessities, yes, diapers, yes, diaper bags, yes, all those good things, but again, I find it so kind of you, Elisa, to bring up that term elitism, because there can be this overpowering elitism that we can sort of transmute onto the rest of communities that are not thinking the way we are. And we have to become humble to that idea. We have to become humble to the ideas of what the norms are for what marketing and sales tell us versus what we want to adopt as norms. We have to be humble to the community. So oftentimes, the circular economy and zero waste can look angry because we are angry. We want better. But how we reframe that and how we teach our children to reframe that has a much bigger impact than all the time citing data, all the time citing waste tonnage, all the time showing really graphic pictures, which it all needs to be done. But we have to be also sensitive to our learning curves for our families. What my 15-year-old knows is not the same as what my 13-year-old knows. And when I think about where they were as infants and toddlers, we have to be careful and very humble to their experiences of receiving that kind of information. Mm-hmm. So, that's what I think. It's just, it's a story of generosity and love and remembrance, and then bringing that forward and just keeping the stuff to a minimum, like toys. Literally, like we like my kids wanted stuffies, so we told them, we're going to the thrift store, we're going to an adoption event, right? So they adopted these toys. We cleaned these toys, and then when they were done with them, we passed them on, right? Yeah. It's not hard, but it is thoughtful. And sometimes today, when we're taxed to make decisions so quickly, we will do thoughtless things.
Okay. I do want to get one last practical question in here, and I'm going to send that to Alejandra. And then, we want to open this up for questions. So Alejandra, maybe just on that practical side, Myrna touched on some of it in terms of the cloth diaper bottles, but, for people who don't know that there are health effects, there are benefits in terms of saving money. There's benefits in terms of a healthier environment within your own home with the products you use for the baby, for your children. Maybe you could speak a little bit to that, and then I'd like to open it up to questions from our audience.
Absolutely. I think from a practical point of view, the biggest impact you can have is with diapers. Absolutely. I also wanted to go back to what I was saying at the beginning. We need to be compassionate with mothers. Mothers are in very different situations. We have working mothers that don't have the capacity to be washing the amount of diapers. But to those mothers, I invite them to try with 1 diaper per day or 1 diaper per week, because every single diaper makes a difference. So again, it's about compassion and about meeting people where they are. Also, we need to provide mothers with education so they understand the actual risk that these materials have in our children. When we talk to families about the risk of mostly plastics and the chemicals containing that are containing plastic, the answer that we get from people is, if they were so dangerous, the government would not let people sell them. And I'm like, no, sadly, that is not the reality. And babies are disproportionately exposed to these chemicals. In fact, there's a study that found that babies have 20 more times, babies less than 12 months old, have 20 times more microplastics building in their bodies than parents. And the reason is why? Because they grew up in a time where everything is plastic. Everything they put in their mouth, everything they wear, everything they touch is plastic. We didn't. We grew up with a lot of different materials that were not plastic, but they don't. So when you tell parents that there's a health risk of all of this easy and convenient, I tell my kids, if you say in your mind it's easy and convenient, think about it twice. Because what's easy and convenient for us, most of the time is not easy and convenient for the planet. There's a trick there. So be careful with that easy, with that convenient, with that fast, with all of that. We're seeing a lot of parents feeding babies those pouches. I don't know if you've seen those pouches in the supermarket. There used to be a few. Now we have hundreds of flavors of organic pumpkin, organic zucchini, organic oats. And parents are like, oh, those are cleaner, healthier alternatives for my baby. They're not. They're full of microplastics. So again, engaging with your baby, sitting your baby in a safe place and matching that pumpkin with that baby and being able to have the interaction where you feed your baby. That's what your baby needs, not the easy and the convenient thing. Now, one more thing that I wanted to tell parents, if you're a new parent right here, something that you have to understand from the side of compassion is your family and your friends, they love you, they care for you, and they express love in many different ways. And I had to learn this the hard way because I had many friends for which love was things, stuff. So I had friends loving me so much that they would bring me stuff and like, here, I love you, take all of this stuff. And I'm like, this is crap. I don't need any of this crap. This is not love to me. What are you doing to me? This is suffering to me because I don't like stuff. I'm not a person of stuff. I'm a person of experiences. So you're going to find this. If you're a zero waste mom or you're a zero waste person, if you're watching this, you already care about the planet, you care about things, you're going to constantly find your mother-in-law, your best friend, your neighbor, everybody's going to want to show you love and your baby love with stuff. So one amazing trick that I found is be preemptive. Write a letter, say, dear friends and family, I am trying to raise a baby with less stuff because we care about these things. If you love me, please give me a coupon of babysitting, or please sign up for a meal train, or please tell them how to love you. In that sense, they feel like they're doing something for you, but it's something that you actually need and you appreciate. So don't think that they hate you because they're giving you stuff. They just love you so much that that's how they show love. So be prepared for that. That's going to happen. It's going to happen in every single birthday. So you have to decide how to make a party that is low waste, how to make a party and tell people, please take my kid for ice cream or play baseball or go-karts instead of giving him stuff. You have to prepare ahead to tell people how to love you the way you want to be loved and the way you want your baby to be loved.
That's very powerful. Yeah, I think a lot of times people aren't sure what to do. So I appreciate that advice. And that really goes for making sure that people understand in your life what you want from them. And you have to be clear about that. I would like to open it up for questions. We have some amazing speakers here, so I'm sure there are some questions out there. You can go ahead and raise the little hand icon at the bottom. And
Elisa, I'll put some questions in the chat if that's easy for you to review, or I can read them aloud, whichever you'd like.
I think you could go ahead and read them, unless there's
Okay.
anybody who wants to, if you want to call out a name, they could take themselves off mute.
I'll read this one that came from YouTube.
Okay.
Does it get harder to be zero waste with your kids once they go to school? I'm lucky my daughter's school uses reusable trays and I make her lunch.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite get that question, Danny.
It was, does it get harder to be zero waste with your kids once they go to school? I'm lucky my daughter's school uses reusable trays and I make her lunch.
So does anyone have a suggestion for that? Does it get easier or harder?
I will say that for my child, it does get more challenging to keep that consciousness in front of them because, as Alejandra pointed out, everything is in a pouch. And I make 4 meals every single morning. I make their lunches, and I make their breakfast, and I make their lunches, and that's very intentional. And I don't feed my kids out of a pouch, and I do make them use metal lunchware, but it is very, very challenging because everything in our school district you're not allowed to send like if your child is having a birthday party or someone else, you're not allowed to send anything that you make from home. Everything has to be encased in plastic and then or bought from a store, and then you bring it to school. I mean, it is challenging. But I will say that in our school district, there's one thing I'm very proud of is that a lot of us parents partnered with the school district and partnered with our local waste hauler, and now they teach kids how to sort the food during lunch off their trays, and they save fruit and they save food that has been uneaten. And part of that is California's law, which is SB 1383 regarding organics, that if it's edible food, it has to be made available back into the food stream, or it has to be donated or composted. So in that way, I'm gratified. Is there still too much in our organic stream and our plastic stream at schools? Absolutely. That's part of what is a challenge with supply chain when you're in a public school district, and also purchasing agreements with food providers. So that's that answer.
Ashley, you had a comment?
Well, I didn't want to change the direction of conversation, but I would love to speak to Audrey's question when we get to it.
Oh, I think please go ahead. I mean, let's make it more of a conversation. You know, if these are probably a lot of topics we didn't get to that you may want to address as well. So please go ahead.
Yeah, well, I saw that Audrey asked what to do if you don't have cloth diaper services in your area, and whether compostable diapers are a viable option. So my community actually has the opposite problem. We have no local infrastructure for where in a diaper would be accepted into an industrial composting facility. The biggest thing that I have heard about that as an item of caution would be that I think there might be some disagreement about scientifically among the composting experts about whether or not composting diaper is going to be more of a burden on that compost system than something that is always going into a compost. So food scrap or, paper products, yard debris or, landscaping debris, because there's not compostable diapers. Like the biggest concern that I've heard stated is that there wouldn't be a nutrient. It wouldn't provide nutrients to the compost, but it would provide a lot of, volume of waste that would have to be composted. So that's something that I would look into, is whether or not there are any specific studies about that. We do have a service in our area that washes cloth diapers, which I have used extensively and I love, but I also launder cloth diapers at home. And truthfully, I know probably everybody's going to think I'm brainwashed, but I actually am someone who has worked 40 hours a week or more the entire time that I've had kids. I had no more than 12 weeks of maternity leave, which is a problem in and of itself. But so I am not living a very a life that has a lot of free time for some of these activities. But I actually think and I do use disposable diapers. When I am traveling and I'm on the road for an extensive period of time, I've tried the alternative and I couldn't do it safely or hygienically. And so I use disposable diapers in those situations, but I truly find them gross. Like, I actually think that disposable diapers are more gross for so many reasons. You know, they like create diaper rash on my kids' skin. They smell like chemicals. I don't know. I don't think that they like work as well to absorb the urine and everything. And I definitely, I just, I think that one of the greatest gifts that I got was that Teresa actually had these secondhand diapers so that I could try them without making a big investment. But the fact is that also every time I have to buy disposable diapers, they're so much more expensive in the long run. So I am not here to say that, you know, if you don't use cloth diapers, that you're not a zero waste parent, because I use both. But what I would say is that I find it to be a lot more manageable than it is truly. There are so many other things that I find harder to keep up with as a parent, and cloth diaper washing is just like, whatever, do it twice a week, throw it in, run it 2 cycles, and I'm done. But keeping track of making sure all the stupid toys get put away that outnumber any amount that I ever needed in the first place is like way more stressful to me. So that's sort of my way of hopefully empowering people.
Alejandra, we have the 2 questions. If either building on what Myrna said about, you know, going from your home environment with the baby, and then when they're out in the world in school, like, are there strategies for that? And then I thought Ashley did well with the explaining her experience with the diapers, but maybe you have something to add there as well.
Yeah, I agree with Myrna. It definitely gets more complicated. And I think, humans, we come into this world to learn our lessons. So every time something bothers you, think about it, is something you have to work on. So every time something bothers me, I'm like, okay, I guess I have to work on patience, because it is really complicated, especially when you are sending kids to school. You lose control of so many factors. How I used to pack their meals every single day, and that's a privilege that not all moms have. Again, not all moms are gonna have the time to cook every single meal and pack every single meal like I did it. That doesn't make me a better mom. That just means I had better partnerships and I had easier access to food and I had time to cook my meals, whatever. That doesn't make you a better mom or not. The point is that once you send your kids to school, if you're a busy mom and you can't pack food, you have no idea what your kids are gonna eat, sadly. There's so much food that is packaged in plastic, like Myrna said, but also teachers love giving things, again, with the gifts, again, with the love. Every time there's an award, every time there's a party, every time there's a gift, here, you were the best student of the week. Take this plastic crappy toy that that your mom's gonna hate. And you're like, how is that love? So again, talking to teachers and being like, hey, we're in a family, that these values are important to us as a family, and we would love those values to be respected. So please, we don't want to be part of this situation. How can we help? How can we bring the cupcakes if they let you bring the cupcakes? Or how can we contribute? And in that sense, you also help people think about it. In many situations, when we do things in our family, somebody stops us and tell us. We were in Puerto Rico and I was like, no, please use my cup. And they're like, no, but it's free. And I'm like, no, please. And the lady came to me and she said, can you please tell me why you don't use this styrofoam cup? And I was like, yes, how much time do you have? And she had no idea that we're drinking so much toxins in plastic, because to them it was a kindness that they wanted to give me, right? We want to give you something and you're not accepting it, so we want to know why. So it gets really complicated. And again, talking to your family, to your friends, and to people around you, this is how we're living our life, is really helpful. I used to be the really annoying mom, and then we moved from a state and they gave us a surprise party because we were moving away from the state. And when we show up to the party, every single one of our friends had a reusable plate, a reusable cup, reusable utensils, and napkins. And it was a zero waste party. And they had no idea why it was so complicated because everybody had to wash a bunch of stuff. But they did it because they wanted to show me that they loved me and my family. And that is a memory that I'm gonna take with me forever because to them, it made no sense at all. But it showed me that they gave me the love that I wanted. So communicating and meeting people where they are, and we'll get there little by little. But yeah, it gets harder, so be patient.
All right, we're actually at time, but I want to give each of you just a quick 20 seconds. What's the takeaway here? What do you want? What advice do you want to offer very simply to those of us who have those who joined today?
I want to jump in because I do have to jump, so I'm going to selfishly be first, if I may. My big takeaway is find other parents who you can partner with, and that's partially on the materials that you share, but also on your activities that you do together, and your solutions and lessons learned. If you're a new parent, you will learn that parenting is a lot about making pacts with other people. Like the pact that I have with my best friend that our kids will not get cell phones until they're at least 15, things of that nature. And my other big takeaway is I always try to remind myself being zero waste is not about charting a bunch of practices that I can check off on a box. I mean, that's not the reason I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I want the experience of, I want my culture and my lifestyle to feel as rich as it feels when I visit places or when I think back to a time in my own life that were slower. And so just remembering that that's why we're all doing this. It's not to be perfect in our zero waste persona. It's so that when we go do something with our families, it feels more like being in a relaxing cafe in Rome where Alejandra is right now, as opposed to running to Starbucks and getting a disposable cup that's lined with plastic and it doesn't even taste that good in the cup anyway. So.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashley. Myrna, real quick, what's the takeaway?
Have the consciousness to know what your baby really needs and what you need as a parent. Do you have sufficient rest? Do you have sufficient nourishment? Do you have sufficient resources around you? Know what you lack and know what you have, and know how you can give away what you do have the capacity to share. That is a very tough thing to balance as a new parent, whether you're adopting or whether you've just birthed the baby. There's a lot of healing that needs to take place. So understand what your needs are, most of all. And that will translate to how you can be generous with others and continue living this zero waste pursuit of offsetting so much waste and being true to who you are and your values.
Thank you. All right, Alejandra, last to you. What's the takeaway?
I would say the easiest thing is a very unpopular opinion. Most of the things that society tells you a baby needs, they don't. If you're giving your baby love and time, your baby's covered for life. Unpopular, but think about that.
Very good. Well, I want to, on behalf of everyone here and our audiences, on the internet, thank you so much for being here today. To Myrna, to Alejandra, and to Ashley. It was really wonderful. So thank you for the advice and the conversation, and hopefully we'll see you next time. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us. Myrna, lovely to meet you.